All right, we're recording in three, two, and one.
So a lot of people think that I did this list to make Jeffrey listen to a bunch of hardcore punk music. That is not the only reason I did this list.
Yeah, it is, and I've got lots to say about that. Welcome to 173, episode 173 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 173. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows and the ups and downs, the good and the bad, the nerd and the murd. As I had told you previously, we were going back and watching the Defenders series, the Marvel
Yes.
Defenders series, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Punisher. Even though Punisher wasn't in the Defenders, it's still part of the Defenders series.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we just finished Daredevil season 3 and have started Punisher season 2. Um, all the Daredevils are really good, and there's another one coming out. There's Daredevil Born Again that's coming out, which I'm really looking forward to. Some of the endings of some of the other episodes or other series have not been great. Luke Cage season 2 and Iron Fist season 2. I didn't like the ending of either of those, and I thought they were weaker than their previous, episode or series episode 1 or whatever, season one of both of those. That's what I'm looking for. But anyway, almost finished with that because we're going to the Punisher season 2 and then Jessica Jones season 3, and then that's it until Daredevil season 4, Daredevil Born Again comes out. So
Mhm. Where does the
haven't
Defenders, where does the one little Defenders miniseries that they did fit in?
It's right in the middle.
Okay.
I can tell you right now. Hold on, because I have a list handy. So the
I'm sorry
defend
for making you look it up.
no, no,
But
I actually have it handy. The Defenders takes place after season 1 of Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, and after season 2 of Daredevil.
okay.
So we had decided to do this because we had finished the Daredevils and then went into season 3. And the way it started, it's like, we're missing something here. So we went back and decided to go all the way through those. So enjoyable enough, but like I said, some of them just kind of weaker than their previous seasons, except for Daredevil. It seems to be, pretty consistent all the way through. I enjoy those. I really love the actor who plays Matt Murdock. Um, I think he's brilliant. I mean, to me, at any rate, in playing a man with no sight, the way he
Yeah.
shifts his eyes and whatnot when you can see his eyes, I think is just absolutely incredible because it's very easy to believe that he's blind.
Yeah, it looks like he's looking for what he's listening to.
Yes,
Yeah.
Charlie Cox. Charlie Cox is
Yeah.
the actor for that. But so really enjoyable, really enjoyable. I'd also mentioned in a previous episode that Michael Shanks of Two Geeks and a Microphone has written a book. I did. It's not. I believe it'll be out by the time this episode is released. I did
Good.
get to go through and do a reading edit of it, a review, and help him out with things in it. So I'm really looking forward to that when it comes out. Definitely give a read for that. But his cohort Stephen Boster has also written a book. I don't know if it'll be out when this episode comes out or not, but it is called Spiritual Sight: The Veilbreaker Chronicles Book 1. And I wanted to read the blurb that he put out on social media for his book because I found it really cool. So here we go. In a world where the veil between good and evil grows thin, one man's journey from doubt to destiny will determine the fate of reality itself. Ethan Parker, a reluctant seminary graduate with a mysterious gift, finds himself thrust into a cosmic battle between light and darkness. Joined by a team of unlikely heroes, Ethan must confront not only the demons that threaten our world, but also the shadows within himself. As ancient prophecies unfold and long buried secrets come to light, Ethan discovers that true strength lies not in power, but in faith, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family, both blood and chosen. from the halls of a sinister hospital to the very edges of reality. Spiritual Sight, The Veilbreaker Chronicles, Book One, is a heart pounding adventure that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the nature of good and evil. Prepare to question your beliefs, confront your fears, and discover the extraordinary power of sacrificial love in this gripping tale of cosmic conflict and personal redemption. Will Ethan and his team be able to stop the forces of darkness from rewriting the very fabric of existence, or will the shadows consume all in their path? The battle for reality begins now. I thought that was pretty cool.
In a world. Thank you for doing the voice.
Sure. Looking forward to that. So give those a shot. They're good friends of ours. We met them, through podcasting and become friends with them. Really interesting how that comes out. And
Yeah,
Brian Ramsey of Three Geeky Dads, which is another great show.
yeah.
Meeting all these various people in the podcast world has been really cool, and these guys have been great. So I love
Yeah.
giving
It, it,
shout outs for them.
they're like new friends we met just doing this. It's like we're gonna meet new friends.
Yeah, yeah, I know it
How
was
does
pretty cool.
that work?
It was pretty cool.
It is really cool.
All right. So, with that, unless you've got something you need to add into here, we will step over to the nerdery side of the house.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover on this. So, remember how before we talked about the indie scenes in different places, particularly
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yeah, Minneapolis. Talked about that indie scene. We talked about the scene in Dallas as well. But in Minneapolis, they had places where bar bands played, and they would play mostly covers, and occasionally they throw in some new music. And that's basically how their two sounds started. DC didn't even have that. Um, it wasn't until the Carter administration that they started getting live music played in large venues anyway. If they had live music, it was the Marine Corps band or something like that. DC didn't really have any of that. Um, Even the big acts didn't come through DC. They went to Baltimore or Wilmington or, Alexandria across the bridge. The city of DC itself didn't have any of that. So I wanted to talk about the two sounds of DC, which honestly couldn't be further apart, but they would play not only in the same venues, but on the same nights in big shows. And what's weird is how you get the DC hardcore punk, which was one of the beginning sounds of the hardcore punk movement, and go-go, and how those two sounds merged. That's why I wanted to talk about this. So I've mixed both of those music sounds, and I'll talk a little bit about them beforehand in each episode. We had to do two episodes because there's a lot of music, and there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't include because we just don't have the time. Um, First off, I want to talk about punk in Washington, D.C. It found its origins in the district's former center of the 1960s counterculture, Georgetown. It became a key location due to its heavy student population and student radio station, WGTB. The station was run with little supervision from the university administration and therefore became a voice in the early 70s for cultural radicalism that had faded since the end of the 60s. DuPont Circle became more known for its diverse and LGBT inclusive community. It also became important as well as a socially restless Adams Morgan. Washington, D.C. first saw touring punk bands such as the Ramones in 1976. Again, not in D.C. itself, but in Baltimore. DC's punk scene emerged that year with groups like the Slicky Boys and Overkill, who were soon joined by the Look, the Controls, the Raz, White Boy, Urban Verbs, the Shriekers, the Penetrators, True Facts, and the Insaniacs, and others. Limp Records, run by record producer and record store owner Skip Groff, released several of the earliest DC punk singles as well as a compilation, 30 Over Washington, all of which helped lay the foundation for the larger scene to come. Also crucial to that scene was the founding of Inner Ear Studios by recording engineer Don Zenatara. The studio would soon produce records from both the Look and the Urban Verbs. So on the other side of that, you had go-go. It's a subgenre of funk music with an emphasis on specific rhythm patterns and live audience call and response. Go-go was originated by African American musicians in Washington, D.C. during the mid-60s to the late 70s. Again, not actually playing in D.C., playing around D.C. Go-go had limited popularity in other areas, but maintains a devout audience in the Washington metropolitan area as a uniquely regional music style and was named the official music of Washington, D.C. in February 2020. Performers associated with the development of the style include Rare Essence, EU, Trouble Funk, and the singer-guitarist Chuck Brown. Modern artists like Charles Shorty Corleone, Garris continue the go-go tradition in DC. In technical terms, go-go's essential beat is characterized by a 5-4 syncopated rhythm that is underscored prominently by the bass drum and snare drum and the hi-hat. It's ornamented by the percussion instruments, especially the conga drums, rototoms, and handheld cowbells. Um, Unique to go-go is an instrumentation with two standard congas and two junior congas, 8-inch and a 9-inch, and about half as tall as the standard congas. A size rare outside go-go. They were introduced to Rare Essence by Tyrone Jungle Boogie Williams in the early days, where they couldn't afford full-size congas and have been unique ever since. The name arises from the persistent percussion beat, but is incorporated in elements of many other genres. So that's a little bit about the DC punk scene and go-go. Let's talk about the music. And what I have done with these lists is I have done one punk song, one go-go song. By the end of both of these lists, those two music genres intertwine. So this will be an interesting look for you. We'll start with the Slicky Boys, When I Go to the Beach. They were a very early adherent to the DC punk scene. Plus, they incorporated a lot of psychedelic and garage rock. Their most remembered lineup consists of guitarist Marshall Keith, guitarist Kim Kane, singer Mark Noon, and drummer Dan Polinsky. The group was named after a GI slang term for the rockabilly-inspired Korean street toughs who sold black market goods to American soldiers. The band was founded in 1976 by guitarist Kim Kane, another dude named Kim, which is cool, and Marshall Keith, with Kane as principal songwriter and featuring Martha Hull on vocals. So, what do you think about the Slicky Boys?
I thought the song started off really cool. I thought it was a really great start to the song. And I'm like, oh man, I'm really gonna like this song. I really thought I was gonna like it. And it turned into the Dead Milkmen. And as soon as it did that, I was just like turned off. I mean, it was okay after that, but meh, no. As soon as it turned to Dead Milkmen, I'm like, switch off. Done, 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 done.
I also want you to notice something about these. Both these groups have the same thing. Um, both different types of genres always do a big lead up
Hmm.
before they start.
Yeah,
And you'll notice that in both genres.
I noticed this on a lot of these songs that the open was unusually long
Hmm.
on a lot of them. It
For hardcore punk, it is exceedingly long because usually
yeah.
that stuff is really quick and done.
Well, and it was funny as I was going through the list because I was doing it through the YouTube playlist. I saw the length of the song, and I'm like, here comes another punk song because it was short.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, but now this song's a met for me.
The next song is Jungle by the Young Senators. The Young Senators, currently known as the Young Senators Reloaded, is an American go-go band formed in Washington, D.C. in 1965. The band consisted of percussionist Jim Duggins, guitarist Calvin Charity, vocalist Derek David, keyboardist Frank Hooker, drummer James Johnson, saxophonist Leroy Fleming, and bassist Warnell Jones. They were originally based in the DC area. The Young Senators released their debut single, Jungle, which quickly rose to the top of regional R&B music charts. Their success led to an opportunity to meet Eddie Kendricks, who had just left the Temptations, and they became his backing band, making them the first road band to record with major Motown artists. The Young Senators had a rivalry with the other go innovators like Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. Although the Soul Searchers later became the dominant band in DC after the Young Senators left to tour with Kendrick's, they performed on Kendrick's 1972 sophomore album, People Hold On, and contributed to his 1973 hit single, Keep On Truckin'. So, what did you think about Jungle by the Young Senators?
It's
Again, big lead up.
it's interesting that you had mentioned the Go-Go sound because I intentionally didn't look at what the DC indie scene was about. I just wanted to listen to the music as it was,
Mhm.
to be able to give my open opinions on it and whatnot. I I love the open of this. I said I thought it was a very 70s open, which makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah.
You're saying the Go-Go's, the Go-Go sound. This is another one that the more I listened to, the more I liked it. I thought this one would fit right
Yeah.
Into a Tarantino movie.
Yes. What's great about what's great about these two sounds, um, go-go is the party sound, and and DC hardcore and DC punk is the angry young person sound. And what's amazing is these bands would play on the same bill, and everybody just show up and groove with it. But again, you're talking about DC. Those guys went on the road because there was no place to play at home.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't until they started opening venues for these local bands to play that this really exploded. And again, it was the Carter administration. Jimmy Carter would, in the summertime during his administration, because he had a bunch of concerts by the Allman Brothers Band, basically, uh, for his uh, for his campaign, they'd start with a concert. The Allman Brothers Band would play a set. He'd get up there and talk for a little while, and then there'd be a barbecue. He wanted to keep that going during his presidency, so he had these summer concert series that he started that just it got people in the mindset of, yeah, we can have music here. Because DC is a government town. The sidewalks roll up at 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
And there really was no nightlife. If you wanted to go to nightlife, you went to, again, Wilmington, which was a couple hours by train, or Baltimore, or Virginia, or Alexandria. You didn't stay in DC. You could take a train up to New York or something like that, but you didn't stay there to do anything. You went out into the countryside.
Mhm.
Which again, to me, that's odd because I'm thinking, well, I mean, why don't you just go to a different part of your town? But they really didn't have that. Um, the next band is one of those bands that kind of crossed over. Um, they are considered the godfathers of the hardcore movement in Washington, D.C. And they started out as a go-go band. Um, Bad Brains are an American rock band formed in Washington, D.C. in 1976. They are widely regarded as pioneers of the hardcore punk movement. Though the band's members have objected to the use of this term to describe their music, they're also an adept reggae band, while later recording features elements of other genres like funk, heavy metal, hip hop, and soul. Rolling Stone magazine called them the mother of all black hard rock bands, and they have been cited as a seminal influence to numerous other subgenres in addition to hardcore punk, including various subgenres of heavy metal such as thrash, speed metal, alternative metal, and funk metal. Bad Brains are followers of the Rastafarian movement. They've released 9 studio albums. They've broken up and reformed several times over their career, sometimes with different singers or drummers. The band originally formed in '76 as a jazz fusion band under the name Mind Power. Their classic lineup includes singer HR, guitarist Dr. No, bassist Daryl Jennifer, and drummer Earl Hudson. This lineup was intact until 1987, as reunited periodically in the years since. Many notable art bands and artists cite Bad Brains as an artistic influence on their music, including the Beastie Boys, Nirvana, Foo Fighters, Guns N' Roses, Soundgarden, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, Faith No More, Rage Against the Machine, Deftones, Clutch, Green Day, The Offspring, The Roots, Lamb of God, Sublime, No Doubt, Anthrax, Living Color, 311, and Fishbone. Everybody loves the Bad Brains. And what's weird about the Bad Brains is from one record to another, they don't even sound like the same damn band. In the mid to late 90s, Bad Brains was making, I don't even know what to call it. It wasn't hardcore punk. It wasn't grunge, it wasn't reggae, it wasn't go-go. It was something completely different. But I wanted to talk about their beginnings because when they first started recording, they were doing hardcore punk songs. And the first one is Sailing On. What did you think about Sailing On by the Bad Brains?
I thought the singer sounded like he was Alice Cooper on acid.
That is probably not inaccurate.
This song was way too punk for me. Um, on I watch Facebook videos every morning, sometimes
Hmm.
before I go to bed. I'm just kind of addicted to it. And there's this chef on there, and I think you would really like these videos. He reviews people's cooking recipes that they do
Hmm.
online, cooking recipe videos that they do, and he reviews them. Um, and it's funny. He wears these dark rimmed glasses and his chef's coat whenever he's on there. And he always at the end of it, and he get he, he's so critical to a lot of these people. He'll do things like, okay, so you're putting the chicken in there and
Oh, I've seen this
wash your
guy.
hand, wash your hands, wash your fucking hands. And he always finishes with, whatever rating out of 10. And sometimes he does a 0 point something, and whether he would try it or not a chance he would try it. On this one, I'm going to give it a 0.6 out of 10 and would never listen again.
Bad Brains? You
Yeah.
should listen to some of their later stuff. I guarantee you there's something in the Bad Brains catalog you will like.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
no, because they completely changed how they sounded from one record to the next.
Well, then you'll have to give me some other ones because this one was a hard pass.
It's pretty hardcore. These guys just exploded on stage. And what's amazing
I wish
is
they had exploded on stage.
the indie sound that I really love started with these guys because what they did, they were the first American punk band to actually tour,
Should have
and they
ended
toured
with should have ended with these guys too.
they toured all across America and all the way back to DC, and everywhere where they toured, a hardcore punk scene popped up. After 2 or 3 years, it stopped being a hardcore punk scene and became the indie scenes in the different areas. So that's why so many people define them as being seminal because they're basically the first one that kicked it off.
Okay, good.
There
So I
would
can
be no
so I
indie
can
scene.
so I can blame these people for putting this crap in my life.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can.
Okay.
Particularly HR and Daryl Jennifer. Daryl Jennifer is probably the best bassist in punk rock
Okay.
ever. Full stop. I would go so far as to say one of the best bassists in rock. Full stop. Because he can play anything. But
That's a
yeah, they
bold
started out getting
statement.
this. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people who will back me up on that, including the list I just gave you.
Mm,
It's like, oh yeah, Daryl Jennifer's a badass.
mm.
And his last name is Jennifer. The next song in our list is Chuck Brown's Bustin' Loose. Chuck Brown, or Charles Lewis Brown, was an American guitarist, bandleader, and singer known as the godfather of go-go. Go-go is that subgenre of funk music developed in and around Washington, D.C. in the mid-70s. Brown's musical career began in the 60s, playing guitar with many jazz musicians and soul singer Jerry Butler, joining Los Latinos in 1965. At the time of his death, he was still performing music and was well known in the Washington, D.C. area. The song Ashley's Roach Clip from the 1974 album Salt of the Earth by Brown's band, The Soul Searchers, contains a drum break, sampled countless times over in various other tracks. Brown's R&B hits include Bustin' Loose from 1979 and We Need Some Money in 1984. Um, he influenced most of the other go-go band sounds. I would say the previous band as the Young Senators as much as him, but most people cite him. Um, Bands like Trouble Funk, Experience Unlimited, or EU, Rare Essence, Hot Cold Sweat, Junkyard Band, AMFM, and Sluggo all cite him as being just the guy who broke it all off. Again, I would argue that it's him and the Young Singers. But what did you think about Bustin' Loose? You've probably heard it before.
Um, it sounded familiar. I thought it was a very groovy opening. This is another one that would fit right into a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Hmm.
Love the wacka wacka guitars right in the middle of it.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought that was really, really cool. This is a good song. I like this one a lot.
Go-Go's great. It's just it's one of those things that you don't it's like, oh, well, it sounds like funk, but it's a little different. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's homegrown. It's weird, but
Yeah, that go-go sound. I mean, that's one of the favorite things of mine. A lot of people pan Iron Man 3 as the weakest of the Iron Man movies,
mhm.
but Brian, I've lost his name. The composer for that, I'll have to look it up. The composer for it, Brian something or other. The end credit song to Iron Man 3 is very go-go.
Very Go-Go.
Go-Go-ish,
Yeah.
and I love it. I've got to
DC
look.
Go-Go band.
Yeah, I've got to look up his name. He's been a great composer.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I love, and what amazes me is again, you get a set by these guys, and then you get a set by again our next band, the Teen Idols, and then
Brian
you get a
Tyler's that composer, by the way.
thank you, um, and it just you'd have the punk kids bouncing around, and again, the DC punk kids didn't wear the uniform. They start with the mohawks and the stuff, but quickly they just went to basically they cut their hair short because they want to get their hair pulled
Hmm.
because they got beat up a lot. Um, so they all cut their hair short and yeah, they may wear a leather jacket when it's cold out, but mostly it's jeans and a t-shirt. And they'd show up and the go-go band would be dressed the same way. They all look like they hung out in the same club and then they just play all this crazy music. I, I would love to be able to go back to that point and see that. Just it blows me away. The next band is the Teen Idols, and the song is Fleeting Fury. The Teen Idols were an American hardcore punk band formed in Washington, D.C. in September of 1979, consisting of teenagers Nathan Strejek, George Grindle, Ian Mackay, and Jeff Nelson. They recorded two demo sessions in the 1980 Minor Disturbances EP before breaking up in November of 1980. The influential independent record label Discord Records was originally created with the sole purpose of releasing the Teen Idols Minor Disturbances 7-inch record. They were an early landmark in the DC hardcore punk movement, and Mackay and Nelson would later form the seminal punk rock band Minor Threat. The Teen Idols were among the first punk groups from the early 80s hardcore movement to break out of their regional scene, to tour and sell nationally. They went on tour with Bad Brains, inspire other American punk bands like the Cramps and, of course, as I said, the Bad Brains. The Teen Idols music was an early version of hardcore punk and an attempt, in the words of Mackay, to get away from really corrupted music. Their appearance, lyrics, and musical style sought to revive a punk movement that they believed had lost its original zeal. So, Fleeting Fury by the Teen Idols is a very important, um, I'll say it, record because when they produced it. And I can tell you that Ian Mackay has gone on to explain what they did. They went and they bought a, a 7-inch and cut it open for the artwork to see where it was cut so they could do their own pressings. They traced it on a piece of paper and then used that paper as a template to draw their artwork on. And then they hand cut the first 1,000 copies of the 7-inch single by just copying that piece of paper and then folding it and gluing it themselves in their apartment because it saved them money. They had the records pressed and they had the label put on the record at the pressing plant. They were going to charge them an extra like $500 to do the sleeves, and they're like, "No, we'll just do them ourselves." And they saved. I think they ended up spending. I think he said $50 as opposed to 500, but they never did that again because it took them several days in this house that they had rented that Ian Mackay now owns and still runs Discord Records out of the back of. What did you think about Fleeting Fury by the Teen Idols?
So when this started, the immediate thought in my head was, "Yay, more punk!" Pass. This is a hard pass. I actually hated this song more with every passing second of the song. I thank God this song was only 90 seconds. I couldn't take it anymore.
You just not like it. You're not into the hardcore at all.
I wanted to punch you in the nose.
It was him. Okay, it's important. I will agree. The Teen Idol stuff, not real crazy about the Teen Idol stuff because when they say teen idols, they're not kidding. I don't think there's a single person on this record who's over 15 years old. This is also, um, he wasn't on the record. Henry Garfield, Henry Rollins, he hadn't changed his name yet, was also part of the scene. He was real heavy with these guys. He was one of the people cutting and folding that night. Um, um, he was basically involved in this. As a matter of fact, Ian and Henry are best friends. Ian's the one that convinced Henry to move out to California when Black Flag asked him to be their lead singer because he was a DC guy. He worked at the Haagen-Dazs in Georgetown at the time. The next song on our list is Freaky Deek by Rare Essence. They're a Washington, D.C. based go-go band formed in 76. Rare Essence has been amongst the most prominent musicians of the DC music scene, producing numerous hit songs in the local DC market, several hits nationwide, including the charting hit Work the Walls. Rare Essence was started in 1976 after childhood friends Quentin Foots Davidson, Andre Whiteboy Johnson, Michael Funky Ned Neal, and John Jones decided to form a band after school. The band gathered in the basement to play top 40 hits from such influential funk bands as Parliament Funkadelic, Cameo, and Confunction in practice sessions. Eventually, the band took on more players and conformed to the go-go style, which gained recognition in the mid 70s. Although the go-go beat had been originated by Chuck Brown, the characteristic four Congo style playing by all subsequent bands was originated by Rare Essence. What did you think about Freaky Deek by Rare Essence?
Would it shock you if I said I really like this song?
No, I figured you'd be all over it. I figured some of the hardcore you would like because it's really rocking guitars, but not the early stuff.
Okay.
I think
Well,
you're going to like the stuff as it gets on.
when I say I like this song, I'm lying. This
Huh?
song was dumb. There was nothing I liked about this song. It's
You
like
didn't
they,
like Freaky Deek?
no, it's like they wanted to try to make themselves a mix of the Young Senators and Chuck Brown, but failed miserably. Um, at the end of it, I heard "stick it" and wanted to punch something.
Stick it.
I wanted to punch something,
Not
and
happy
I
with the
apparently
Freaky
just set off dogs by doing that.
Deek. The next song in our list is Marginal Man, Missing Rungs. Marginal Man was an American punk band from Washington, D.C. that formed in 82. Three of its members, Steve Polcari, Pete Murray, and Mike Manos, had previously played together in the Bethesda, Maryland hardcore band Artificial Peace, a notable part of DC's early hardcore scene, appearing on Discord Records' Landmark's Flex Your Head compilation. After Artificial Peace disbanded, the trio would join up with Andre Lee and Kenny Inouye to form Marginal Man. The band's first performance occurred on November 19th, 1982, at a basement show with Scream, Insurrection, Double O, United Mutation, and others. According to Polcari, the name Marginal Man referred to the concept of having friends in two or more groups, but not being part of any individual group, kind of like outside looking in. Marginal Band was one of the first DC hardcore bands, in addition to The Faith and Minor Threat, to feature two guitarists. According to Minor Threat drummer and Discord Records co-founder Jeff Nelson, Marginal Man made the best use of two guitars of all the bands in DC. The band toured and recorded frequently before giving a final performance at the 930 Club on March 24th, 1988. The band subsequently reunited for several shows, the 930 Club on August 29th, 1991 and December 30th, 1995. The second to last show at the 930 Club's original location in the Black Cat on August 20th, 2011. Guitarist Kenny Inouye is son of the late former representative, senator, and Medal of Honor recipient Daniel Inouye, uh, who represented us or Hawaii. Uh, so yeah, um, he's really big in the making of the Kenny is really big in the making of the documentaries they started making about this stuff about 10 years ago, because a lot of people were like, we need to get this stuff on film and on paper before we start losing everybody and they forget that these things happened. Because the the history of it was disappearing. Um, but yeah, what did you think about Marginal Man?
I had hopes for this one when it started.
With the big lead up.
36 seconds of opening guitar was fine. Then we had to start, and I'm doing air quotes, singing, and went into more punk. This is another hard pass. The lead singer sounded like he was trying to be Mick Jagger and failed miserably. I just no. This is a no, 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 no,
No, don't
no,
like it.
no.
Did you like it better than the last one?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
They were just both hard passes for me.
Okay. Okay. The next song is Trouble Funk, Drop the Bomb. They're an American R&B and funk band from Washington, D.C. The group helped popularize funk and the subgenre go-go in the Washington metropolitan area. Among the band's well-known songs is the go-go anthem Hey Fellas. They released several other studio albums, including Drop the Bomb, In Times of Trouble Live, and Trouble Over Here, and two live albums. Trouble Funk, Straight Up Go-Go Style, and Saturday Night Live. In 1982, they played Saturday Night Live. Um, so early in the morning on DETT Records. They released that in 1982, right after the Saturday Night Live performance. Later reissues of diverse labels as 21361 and Tough City. Trouble Funk sometimes shared the stage with hardcore punk bands of the day, such as Minor Threat and the Big Boys. Trouble Funk's song Pump Me Up was sampled by many other artists, including Dimple D's one-hit wonder Sucker DJ, which went on to #1 in Australia. Public Enemy's Fight the Power, Curtis Blow's song If I Ruled the World, and Mars's song Pump Up the Volume came. The Pump Me Up part, that is from them. The song is also featured in the film Style Wars and on the fictional old school hip hop radio station Wild Style in the game Grand Theft Auto Vice City. What did you think about Trouble Funk Drop the Bomb?
Okay, again, air quotes, sang drop the bomb 19 times in the
Mm-hmm.
first minute. I had to go back and actually count. Did we just forget you can put other lyrics in a song? It was just drop the bomb, drop the bomb. This song was 7 minutes long.
Yes, it
I,
was.
you know, I dropped out at the 3 minute mark. I couldn't listen to it. I couldn't listen to that same lyric for another 20 times in a row. It was going to drive me insane. So our friend Stephen Boster that I mentioned at the beginning of the show on Two Geeks and a Microphone, whenever they're watching various shows or movies or whatnot, if Steven is getting bored in a show, whatever he's watching, he Steven skips through. And that means he goes 10 seconds forward just to see if it gets more interesting before he gets back into it. So I'm stealing this because once I got to that 3 minute mark, I Steven skipped through the rest of the song and it never
You
got any
Jeffrey
better.
skipped?
I Steven skipped. I'm going to give him the credit for that. This song never got any better. I hated this song. I'm hearing
Really?
"Drop the Bomb" in my head right now, and again, I want to punch you.
All right. The next song in our list is Minor Threat and Salad Days. So again, Minor Threat, Ian MacKaye and drummer Jeff Nelson. And I keep saying MacKaye, it's spelled McKay. Henry Rollins calls him Ian MacKaye, so I'm going to call him Ian MacKaye. He's his best friend. They recruited bassist Brian Baker and guitarist Lyle Pressler to form Minor Threat. And they added a fifth member, Steve Hansgen, in 1982 playing bass while Baker switched to the second guitar. The band was relatively short-lived, disbanding after only 3 years together, but had a strong influence on the emerging American hardcore punk scene, both stylistically and helping to further establish the do-it-yourself ethic for music distribution. Again, they had their own record company. Minor Threat's song Straight Edge was the basis for the straight edge movement, which emphasized a lifestyle without alcohol and other drugs or promiscuous sex. The idea of the rockist that we talked about before with punk music, you don't want to be rockist. That they called that straight edge. Mostly because Ian MacKaye didn't like to drink or do a bunch of hard drugs, and he saw a bunch of people, especially in the Adams Morgan neighborhood. There was a music collective that all these guys used to play at, which they called Madam's Organ because it was in Adams Morgan. Um, it was an art collective. It's now a hair salon, but they the legalized weed guys came in and kind of took that space over, and they also wanted to legalize everything else. So everybody there was fucked up all the time, every time they went, and it turned Mackay off. He's like, there's no reason to. So he wrote the song called Straight Edge because he's like, I don't want to do that. And if he would go into a bar, he he paid the extra cover, and they put the X's on his hands. Well, he just started showing up with the X's already on his hands. Look, I'm not going to drink. I'm not a guy who drinks um or does drugs. So he would just put the X's on his hand. That became an emblem of the straight edge movement. As a matter of fact, there is a Minor Threat album where it's someone's chest and they're just holding their hands up like this, and they got big black X's on the back of their hands. Um, but it, they kind of kicked off that movement. It got carried away, and eventually Ian Mackay's like, "Look, I'm not telling you not to do. I'm just telling you, I don't really drink or do drugs. He does now, like he might have a glass of wine or something, but again, he's not a big drinker. He never was, and neither was the rest of the band. Um, but it became a movement, and so it's kind of important. And my favorite tune by Minor Threat, even though they had some more important things like Minor Threat and Straight Edge, is Salad Days, just because I like the song. That's why I put that in there. I mean, they only lasted like 2 or 3 years, so it doesn't really matter. You know, in terms of the time period, doesn't matter which one I pick because they didn't last that long. A lot of these punk bands didn't. They formed different bands when someone left, as opposed to continuing on and bringing someone else in. So, what did you think about Salad Days by Minor Threat?
So this is another one that the opening of it made me think I was really going to like this song. And then the 42-second mark hit. Now we've gone back to punk. Pass.
Not into it.
Nope.
Again,
Why
I
can't
love
they
Minor
stay
Threat.
as good as their opening?
They get better. They get better.
Not this one.
Well, yeah, actually, because they formed different bands after this. Those bands are great. Um, I like the hardcore punk for its rawness. Again, but I can't listen to it all day. I need I need a little more. The thing I liked about them is again, they had that great lead up because they were going to these go-go shows. And the go-go guys were like, dude, why don't you put some lead up in there? That people like that. That's how you get the people to dance. And they were right. The last song on our list is
For this one.
Experience Unlimited, usually known as EU, and the song is Debut. Now, this song actually got out into the world. Um, they are a go-go funk band that enjoyed its height of popularity in the 80s and the early 90s, fronted by lead singer bassist Gregory Sugar Bear Elliott. The group has had a fluctuating membership over the years, but they maintain a fairly loyal following. The band's biggest hit was 1988's Debut, which appeared on the soundtrack for the Spike Lee film School Days. That's how it got out. They originally released this song on an indie record in like 1985 because this is the point we're at. We're the early to mid 80s. It did not go huge until February 2nd of 1988, and then Spike Lee put it in School Days. Um, their first hit was Buck Wild, which was co-written and co-produced by William Juju House and the late Kent Wood. Buck Wild peaked #7 on the R&B hip hop charts and the second top Billboard hit following the group's #1 R&B hit Debut. Again, the second major release was February 2nd, 1988, but it actually was about 2 or 3 years old when they put that particular version of the single out. And then Spike Lee used it in School Days. What did you think about you've heard this one before? What did you think about Debut?
I
It's about a dance.
I I d- I couldn't remember if I'd heard it before or not. There were some things that sounded familiar about it, but I could tell from the opening note this was not going to be a song I liked, and I was right. Just no, 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 no. I tried. I do remember hearing the refrain years ago. I'm pretty sure I hated it then and hate it now.
Doing the butt. Ow, sexy, sexy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know
I'm
that
hating.
bit.
I'm hating it even more now.
Okay, well, that is the end of our list for 173, but be back here next week for 174, where we're going to continue on this little list. And we're actually going through history as we're going.
And as I got to the end of listening to 173, because I did this all in one sitting, back to back. I got to the end of 173 and I breathed a sigh of relief. I cried a little bit. I had to curl up in a fetal position, hold myself a little bit because I knew I had 10 songs to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but you did find a couple that you really liked.
I'll get there.
Okay.
I'll get
No,
there.
no, I meant in 173.
Yes, yes, there were a couple. Yeah, yeah,
You liked the Young Senators and Chuck Brown.
yeah. I thought I thought both those were cool. But I mean, like I said, both of those sound like they could have been in any Quentin Tarantino movie.
Hmm.
And so, he's always been a genius at picking music picking music that not everybody knows
Hmm.
for his movies. I think he's a genius when it comes to that. So cool. Awesome. Awesome. Then with that, I can take a breather now. Let's step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off All That's Interesting, Wikipedia, and Medium, and this is the story of the Chameleon Killer.
The Chameleon Killer.
On November 10th, 1985, two brothers were hunting in Bear Brook State Park, which bordered Allenstown, New Hampshire. Off a trail, one of the brothers noticed an oil barrel turned on its side, and they went looking, and there was the bones of a foot sticking out of it. Inside, they found two decomposing bodies that were wrapped up in plastic. The brothers notified the police, who found the skeletal remains of a 22 to 20 to 33-year-old adult woman inside, as well as a female child around 11. It was believed both victims had been killed sometime between 1977 and 1985. And then 15 years later, another barrel was found containing the remains of two more young children. One of these was around 1 to 3 years old, and the other was around 2 to 4 years old. All four were determined to have passed away from blunt force trauma. And with that, investigators concluded that both cases were related. The four victims were connected, and named the Allenstown Four. There was a decades long quest to identify them that would eventually lead authorities to a serial killer named Terry Rasmussen, who was so ruthless and cunning and with so many identities that he became known nationwide as the Chameleon Killer. So Terry Peter Rasmussen was an American convicted murderer and suspected serial killer who was convicted of one murder and linked to at least five more in a series of crimes that stretched across the contiguous United States between 1978 and 2002. In 1981, Rasmussen left New Hampshire with his girlfriend, Denise Bodin, who subsequently disappeared, and he's suspected of killing her. Rasmussen also abducted Bodin's daughter and fled to California. He abused and molested the child before deserting her in 1986 and was subsequently imprisoned on child abandonment charges. Rasmussen died in prison after being convicted of 2002 murder of another girlfriend, in soon June, or maybe June. And Rasmussen is the prime suspect in the unsolved Bear Brook murders, which took place in New Hampshire between 78 and 80. The bodies of Marlise Honeychurch, her two daughters, and his own daughter were discovered in two barrels in the Allenstown area between 85 and 2000. And although the Allenstown barrels were discovered during his lifetime, Rasmussen was not linked until 2017 when DNA profiling connected him to the crime. Subsequent investigations led to three of the Bear Brook victims being identified. The identity of the fourth victim, Rasmussen's daughter, remains unknown. Even though she's been verified as his daughter, her identity is unknown to this day.
Wow.
So Terry Peter Rasmussen was born on December 23rd, 1943 in Denver, Colorado. He grew up in Arizona, where he attended North High School in Phoenix until dropping out during his sophomore year in 1960. He enlisted in the United States Navy in 1961, where he was trained as an electrician and served until he was discharged in 1967. He married in 1968 and lived with his wife and four children in Phoenix and Redwood City, California. His family would later recall that he was physically abusive, burning one of his sons with cigarette butts. Rasmussen's wife left him and took the children in 1975 after he was arrested for aggravated assault. And the family last saw Terry Rasmussen around December 1975 or 76 when he showed up at their home with an unidentified woman. The divorce was finalized in 1978, and then Rasmussen lived in a number of states, including Arizona, Colorado, California, Idaho, Virginia, Texas, Ohio, Oregon, and Hawaii, finally settling in New Hampshire sometime in the 1970s. It was reported that he was known to travel with women and children, and he often worked as an electrician for oil and gas companies. While living in Manchester, New Hampshire, Rasmussen lived under the alias Bob Evans and worked at the Wambeck Mill. He was arrested 3 times in 1980 for writing a bad check, theft, and diverting electric current, which I think is a wild crime. A woman
Well, he's an
named,
electrician.
yes, a woman named Elizabeth Evans was listed as his wife during his time in New Hampshire. This woman is believed to be Marlise Elizabeth Honeychurch, the adult Bear Brook victim, but her identity has never been confirmed. In 1978, Rasmussen dated Honeychurch, who had been married twice and had a daughter from each marriage. She was last seen in La Puente, California on Thanksgiving Day of that year. And after having an argument with her family, Honeychurch left with Rasmussen and her 2 daughters, 6-year-old Marie Elizabeth Vaughn and 1-year-old Sarah Lynn McWaters, and they were never seen by their family again. On November 10th, 1985, the bodies of Honeychurch and Vaughn were found in a barrel in Bear Brook State Park, as I'd mentioned earlier, in Allenstown, New Hampshire. They were found to have died of blunt force trauma to their head. And then on May 9th, 2000 was when the second barrel was found, which was only about 100 yards from the location of the first, which I found interesting. When they found the first barrel, do you not widen your search a little bit for clues and evidence and things like that? I would think 100 yards is not that far, but
Well, if it depending on the type of forest, some of those heavy forests, like we don't get them, but some of those heavy forests are, it's hard to walk over the tree roots. Like
maybe,
they stick up out of the ground 3-4 feet.
maybe. Um, but anyway, yeah, it was found within 100 yards of the first barrel, and it contained the body of McWaters and the unidentified child aged between 2 and 4 years. Investigators believe all 4 victims were killed at or around the same time, and that the second barrel was already there in 85, but was overlooked due to its distance from the first. Like I said, I didn't quite understand that, but maybe you've figured that out a little bit better than I did. The identities of
I think you're right. They still should have looked. I mean, 100 yards, that's not that
it's
far.
not that far. It's a football field, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, the identities of Honeychurch and her 2 children were not known until they were confirmed by DNA profiling in 2019. And as of June 2019, the third child remains unidentified, but authorities were able to confirm that Rasmussen was her biological father. Rasmussen died before being linked to the Bear Brook crimes, and thus he was never charged or tried in court. While using the pseudonym Bob Evans, Rasmussen dated Bernice Bodin, who we talked about, who disappeared from Manchester after Thanksgiving with her 6-month-old daughter. Authorities believe that Rasmussen killed Bodin somewhere in California, although her body has never been found. She was reported missing at the time, as her family believes she left town due to. She was not reported missing at the time because her family believes she left town due to financial reasons. Throughout the early 1980s, Rasmussen remained in possession of Boudin's daughter, whom he called Lisa, and posed as her father. He was arrested in Cypress, California in 1985 under the name Curtis Kimball for charges of driving under the influence and endangering the welfare of a child, but failed to appear in court. He then took on the alias Gordon Jensen and abandoned the child in an RV park in Scotts Valley, California in 1986. 2 years later, Rasmussen was arrested under another alias, Jerry Mockerman, for driving a stolen vehicle. And as Mockerman, his fingerprints were linked to him back to his Curtis Kimball alias. In 1989, he was arrested and received a 3-year prison sentence for child abandonment. An additional charge of child abuse was dropped, and this is believed to have been the result of a plea bargain. He was paroled in 1990 and absconded almost immediately, becoming a fugitive. He would then resurface in December of 1999 under the pseudonym Larry Vanner when California-based chemist Ensoon June introduced him to her family. The two were married in an unofficial ceremony in 2001, and Ensoon disappeared the following June, and her body was found buried in cat litter in their home after having died from blunt force trauma to the head.
Oh my God.
Rasmussen was arrested in November of 2002 and pleaded no contest in 2003 to charges relating to her murder and dismemberment. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, but the guilty plea came as a surprise to the court. Contra Costa County homicide detective Roxanne Grunheid believes that Terry Rasmussen pleaded guilty after overhearing her say that she was going to request a paternity test for Lisa, hoping the guilty plea would make Grunheid stop probing into his past. A fingerprint match had confirmed that along with Vanner, he had previously used the alias Jensen and Kimball, linking him to the child abandonment case. And in 2003, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department opened a case to find Lisa's biological family. DNA evidence eventually found that Rasmussen was not Lisa's father, and the case went years without any significant developments. Terry Rasmussen died on December 28, 2010, at age 67 while imprisoned at High Desert State Prison. His cause of death was a combination of lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and pneumonia. So then fast forward to 2013, and the Center for Missing and Exploited Children created new facial reconstructions of all four victims. And around that time, several organizations, private labs, and forensic scientists were conducting a bunch of tests to try and discover more information about the victims. From those tests, officials were able to determine that the youngest kid and the oldest kid were from the same region, presumably New Hampshire. The middle kid was believed to have been raised either in the upper Northeast or upper Midwest. 2 years later, another set of facial reconstructions was made of the victims to showcase what they may have looked like in real life. And it was finally a way to put a face to the bodies found all those years ago, which I find amazing that they can take skulls and do facial reconstruction from that.
Yeah.
I find that amazing.
Well, I mean, we know how the stuff attaches, particularly
Yeah,
now.
but
It's better in the last 20, 30 years,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah.
Because they look at it and go, okay, if their nose is like this, then that means there's a depth of the nose that's this far. So that means they're, it's either going to be this way or this way. And they just do it a piece at a time and they build a face out from it. Takes them a while.
I just think it's really cool. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Science and art coming
Yeah.
together. It's beautiful.
With the new sketches and all the advancements in forensics testing, authorities conclude that the four victims had all lived in New Hampshire together for several months before they were murdered, which detectives believed happened at once between the time frame of 1980 to 1984. San Bernardino detective Peter Headley was assigned to Lisa's case in 2013, by which time genealogy website databases had grown substantially. Aided by genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter in 2015, Boudin's daughter discovered her mother's identity and that the man she once thought had been her father was her kidnapper. When Boudin's father was shown a mugshot of Curtis Kimball, he identified him as Bob Evans, and this linked him to New Hampshire in the same time frame as the Bear Brook murders.
Wow.
On January 26, 2017, authorities publicly announced that Bob Evans was a suspect in the disappearance of Boudin and the Bear Brook murders. And additionally, they announced that DNA confirmed he was the father of the middle child found in Allenstown, but that Evans was a pseudonym and his legal identity was not known at that time. In June of 2017, in the hopes of finding his true identity, police released a video of a police interview of Evans from 2002, after his murder of Unsoon. 2 months later, he was confirmed to be Rasmussen through Y-DNA testing from a DNA sample contributed by one of his children from what is believed to be his first marriage. The use of genetic genealogy to identify Rasmussen represented new possibilities for forensics investigations. These techniques have been since used in other high-profile cases, including the capture of serial killer Joseph James DeAngelo in April of 2018. If you want to hear more about DeAngelo, we did cover him in an exclusive episode for our patrons.
Yes.
And that's my shameless plug. So if you want to hear
Thank
more
you. Nice
episodes.
plug. I don't think it was shameless at all.
New Hampshire investigators announced that the identities of Honeychurch, Vaughn, and McWaters were confirmed through DNA testing through June 2019. The identities of the middle child who Rasmussen fathered and her mother remain unknown. Investigators believe that the mother of the child was also killed by Rasmussen.
We may never know that kid's name. That kid
Right,
may not even had a name.
right. Criminologist Jack Levin has stated that Rasmussen is unlike any serial killer he has ever studied, stating, quote, what distinguishes Rasmussen from most serial killers is that he targeted people with whom he had a relationship. Most serial killers would never do that. It's the last thing they would do. Instead, they focus on complete strangers. In 2018, New Hampshire Public Radio covered the Bear Brook murders as well as other posthumous
Posthumous?
thank you, posthumous findings on Rasmussen on the first season of the true crime podcast Bear Brook. Rasmussen lived a mile and a half away from 14-year-old Laureen Ron when she disappeared from Manchester in April of 1980. Denise Denault, a 25-year-old woman who lived 2 blocks from the Ron residence and on the same street as Rasmussen, went missing from a bar in June of 1980. Police and FBI agents conducted a search in Manchester after receiving an anonymous tip regarding Denault in November of 2017, after Rasmussen was announced as the Bear Brook Killer. A second search was conducted in May 2018, and by 2020, New Hampshire Senior Assistant Attorney General Jeff Strelzin said there was no evidentiary connection between Denault and Rasmussen, but that the interest in this case has brought renewed attention to Denault's disappearance. Elizabeth Lamott was 17 years old when she disappeared from the Youth Development Center in Manchester in 1984. She left the group home after receiving a furlough, so she was not reported missing until police were seeking more information on Rasmussen in 2017. At that time, a tipster speculated she could have been the Elizabeth Evans that had been listed as Rasmussen's wife during his time in Manchester. However, DNA from Lamott's relatives later proved that she was one of the victims in the Redhead Murders, a series of unsolved homicides across the U.S., which were related to Rasmussen. Lamott had been found in Tennessee in 1985, killed about 4 months after her disappearance. For more on Elizabeth Lamott and the redheaded murders, tune in next week because we're going to be covering that.
Nice.
When Lisa was interviewed by detectives in 1986, they asked her if she had any siblings. She said she did, but they died eating grass mushrooms when they were out camping. As Rasmussen did not have any known victims during the 5 years between Bodin's disappearance and Lisa's abandonment, her answer led police to believe that he may have had more unknown victims. San Joaquin County Assistant Sheriff John Huber speculated that Terry Rasmussen may have been responsible for killing Amanda Schumann-Deza. In 1985, her body was discovered by scavengers inside a refrigerator, which had been dumped in a canal in Holt, California. Like Rasmussen's confirmed victims, she had died of blunt force trauma to the head, and having previously been an unidentified victim known as the San Joaquin Jane Doe and the lady in the fridge, Deza was identified by Othram on February 23rd, 2023. So the Chameleon Killer died in prison in 2010, as I'd stated before. He died as Kimball without ever having facing justice for a fraction of his deeds. Under a multitude of aliases across 3 decades, Terry Rasmussen murdered, abducted, and deceived his way through several states. And despite the Chameleon Killer long ago dying in prison, to this day, authorities still suspect him in other unsolved homicides and missing person cases. After the 3 victims were identified, an official funeral was held for them, and a new sketch of the 4th victim was made and released to the public. No further connections have been made in the process of finding out who the fourth child was, other than the fact that she was Terry Rasmussen's child. And that's the story of the Chameleon Killer.
He just he was just horrible all across America.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I could see why it was so hard to find him because the guy kept changing his ID every couple of years.
right, right. Becoming somebody new
Yeah.
and blending in.
And he finally got caught when that became harder to do,
Right,
it seems like. Yeah,
right.
that's what finally tripped him up. It's like you can't be you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for sticking with me on that case. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. That will take us to the end of another recording week. Please do remember, as always, you can find more about us on nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub for everything that we discuss here on the show. You can find links to our episodes as well as pictures to the topics we discuss. And you'll also find the link to our YouTube page, which Zig so often updates.
Yes, as a matter of fact, all of this music is on that YouTube page. Enjoy.
Yeah, it is. I can verify that. Die in a fire. Um, yeah, so you can also find a link to our merchandise page where if you wish to show off your nerdery murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing something from there. That along with our the link to our Patreon if you want to become a patron and help with the costs that are associated with the show. It does cost to keep us on the air, to keep our uploads going, and keep broadcasting all the fun topics y'all have keep coming back time and time and week to hear. So we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. Last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the content we're discussing. Don't forget to stay tuned to hear our latest AI generated music and let us know what you think. With that,
Do that new music.